Chapter 784, She Has Sacrificed Enough for Me. Bailihua examined Gogo's body. Due to his weak immune system, he was a lot more fragile than Tang Tang. They didn't know it now, but this difference would become even more apparent as the two boys grew older. And, because of this difference, the two boys were destined to walk very different paths. Before the Ftian Awards was to be held, Tang Ning officially started filming A Survivor. Previously, when Gogo was sick, it wasn't that serious, it was just a normal fever and flu. But, one afternoon, Bailihua began to feel that something wasn't right. So, she immediately gave Mo Ting a phone call while he was working. "We need to send Gogo straight to the hospital. Something doesn't seem right." Mo Ting immediately dropped everything and hurried home. He also instructed Lu Che to contact the most authoritative specialist. After arriving at the hospital, Gogo immediately had a full-body checkup. In the end, the results confirmed that Gogo's lungs did not develop properly and needed long-term treatment. On top of that, he needed to be protected. Problems with the lungs were serious. If they weren't careful, he could even die at a young age. "Mr. Mo, feel free to contact our pediatric specialist, Dr. Dan. She specializes in the treatment of children. Unfortunately, she is currently overseas and will return in a few days." Mo Ting looked sadly at Gogo, who had just fallen asleep after much difficulty. Bailihua answered a few of the head nurse's questions before she asked Mo Ting, "Should we tell Zhang? I will personally tell her after A Survivor finishes filming." Mo Ting replied. He knew that if he was to tell Tang Ning right now, she would give up everything and return home to take care of Gogo. "Good." Bailihua nodded. "Wait until Gogo stabilizes a little and we get an update on his condition." This time, Gogo ended up having a fever for 2 days. This was when the highly qualified Dr. Tan finally returned to China. After hearing about Gogo's condition, she immediately rushed to the hospital without even unpacking her clothes. She was very young at just 28 years old, but she often appeared on the front cover of medical magazines and had won many awards. She liked children, so she majored in pediatrics during her studies in the US. After returning to China, she placed her focus on the research of rare childhood disorders. Gogo's condition isn't as serious as it looks, but he needs to come for regular checkups at the hospital. "We understand, Dr. Dan," Bailihua replied. "Where's the child's mother?" Tan Suling turned and asked Bailihua. "Zhang doesn't know about this yet." Although Tan Suling didn't pay attention to entertainment news, she was still aware of Tang Ning's gossip, so she nodded her head. "I know that your entire family is in the public eye, but I suggest that the mother can bring the child here next time." "Okay," Bailihua nodded. Afterwards, Mo Ting carried Gogo out of the hospital. Of course, not many people knew about this. I must say that half-caste girls are pretty. Although Bailihua knew it wasn't the right time to mention this, but she couldn't help but sigh after seeing Tan Suling's face. "She's even a doctor." "Not bad. If I had another son, I would make him pursue her." Mo Ting did not reply as he held onto the sleeping Gogo. It was unclear what the head of the family was currently thinking about. Bailihua roughly guessed what he was thinking and said, "I know what you're thinking. You're worried that Zhang will be worried and you're afraid that she'd give up on living her own life because of Gogo. I'm not just worried. I know she will definitely do that. But you shouldn't keep it a secret from Zhang for too long. She is Gogo's mother. How could a mother be kept in the dark about her own child? Plus, Zhang is a very observant person. As soon as she returns home, she will definitely realize that there is something odd about Gogo. After she finishes filming, I will definitely tell her," Mo Ting insisted. "She's already sacrificed enough for me." However, a mother and her child had a natural connection. So, that night, Tang Ning made a phone call home to check on her babies and specifically asked if Gogo had another fever. Mo Ting replied honestly that he was a little unwell, but was currently recovering. After hearing that, Tang Ning fell silent for quite some time. As soon as the next morning came around, she asked for leave and returned home. Only after she saw her baby was active and full of energy did she relax a little. Mo Ting approached her from behind and gave her a hug. Placing his chin on her shoulder, he asked, "Why did you suddenly come home?" "I had a dream that Gogo had a fever, so I had to check on him to feel rest assured," Tang Ning replied gently. "Plus, I don't have that many scenes at the moment. Later, when we move the set to the mountains, It won't be easy for me to see you guys even if I wanted to. Silly. Mo Ting was well aware of how much Tang Ning loved the babies. Ting, take videos of the babies every day and send them to me. In case I miss them, I could always bring the two kids to monitor you at work. Are you crazy? The conditions are tough on set. I don't want you and the kids to suffer. Plus, everyone on set will laugh at me. Tang Ning giggled. Don't worry, filming shouldn't take too long. As soon as I have time, I will return home. Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply hugged Tang Ning tighter. Only God knew how much he had wanted to see her. Because, as a father, he had his fears. And Tang Ning seemed to have sensed this, so she returned home and appeared in front of him at the time when he missed her the most. Focus on your filming. The Ftian Awards is coming up, but Hairui will arrange everything. You don't need to worry. Last year, Tang Ning just managed to go home with the Best Newcomer award. And this year, she was vying for the Best Actress award. With so many good films and performances under her belt, Mo Ting believed that the award was already in Tang Ning's hands. Daddy Ting, you seem a little weird today. Mo Ting did not say a word as he directly pressed his lips against hers. Although Tang Ning appeared to trust Mo Ting's words when he said that nothing was wrong, she still called Lu Che when she returned to the set to see if she could get any information out of him. But, of course, Mo Ting knew how to keep a secret. So, even Lu Che had no idea about Gogo's medical condition. Soon, Tang Ning moved to the new set in the mountains. During this time, the Ftian Awards also announced their nomination list for the year. As expected, Tang Ning was amongst the list for Best Actress. But, at this time, Gogo fell sick again. Tang Ning's not here again? Tan Suing noticed that Mo Ting had come to the hospital on his own again, so she began to develop a bad impression towards Tang Ning. No matter how important her film is, it can't be more important than her own child. After hearing this, Mo Ting furrowed his brows. On this occasion, he simply accepted it as a doctor's concern for her patient. But, if she dared to say anything about Tang Ning again, he would not remain silent. His fever has worsened and his immune system has weakened even more. You can't take him outdoors from now on and make sure not to let him stay in the wind for too long. Tan Suing did not receive a response from Mo Ting, so she changed the topic. But, after Mo Ting left, she began chatting to her assistant. It's rare to see a man in the entertainment industry that cares so much about his family and child. It's too bad that Tang Ning is not a good mother. She spends all day trying to impress the viewers, yet she won't spend an ounce of energy on caring for her own child. Chapter 785, Does Mom and Dad not like daughters? I know, right? Her child is currently sick, yet she's still focused on filming. Won't her child hate her in the future? In the eyes of a doctor, nothing mattered more than a life. Whether someone ruled the world or was a mere beggar on the streets, they could not avoid taking medicine, getting injections and going to the hospital. So, even if Tang Ning had an extremely important reason, they still felt that she was disrespecting her identity as a mother by not being by her child's side when it was so sick. Tan Suing did not say a word. Instead, she pulled out her phone and did a search on Tang Ning's name. The outside world was covered in news about Tang Ning's possibility of winning the Ftian Best Actress award. Well, look at this. She's about to win an award. After seeing the news, Tan Suing put away her phone and smirked before she returned to treating her patients. She had already heard about the relationship between Mo Ting and Tang Ning in the past. They seemed to be doing well. But, why did the father turn up alone when their child was sick? Also, why didn't Mo Ting mention a word about Tang Ning this entire time? Could they possibly be putting on an act in front of everyone? Tan Suing was familiar with marriages of convenience. Each party got what they wanted, so it wasn't anything to be surprised about. But, the child was the most pitiful. It seemed, a man like Mo Ting simply wanted to find a suitable person to give birth to his child. He couldn't possibly just have one woman. But, in reality, after Tang Ning moved to the set in the mountains, Mo Ting took the kids to visit her, simply because he thought she'd miss them. That day, Tang Ning had just finished filming and not a single patch on her body was clean. As she watched Mo Ting approach from the distance carrying the two kids, she revealed a slight smile. The extras on set immediately pointed out, Tang Ning, from the moment that you joined the cast, I've never seen you smile like this. Only President Mo gets to enjoy this special treatment. Ningji, President Mo is carrying your baby, but who does the other baby belong to? Why is he carrying two? I think the other one is mine as well, because I gave birth to twins. Tangning smiled. The little extras covered their mouths before they gave her a thumbs up. You're amazing. You never revealed this to the public. I hope you can keep it a secret for me. After speaking, Tangning didn't even change her clothes before she walked towards the father and sons. No one on set had ever expected that the intimidating Mo Ting would end up appearing on set with his babies. The scene in front of them was hard to imagine. It was originally against the rules of convention, but when they witnessed it in person, it somehow looked so natural and warm. Why did you suddenly come? Go have a bath and get changed. We will wait for you in your room, Mo Ting responded. Okay. Tangning nodded. Soon, the couple disappeared from everyone's sight with the two babies. However, the scene that the crew had just witnessed filled them with admiration. President Mo and Ningji are so loving. Did you guys see the warmth and love in President Mo's eyes as he looked at Ningji? Can they be any more perfect? Everyone saw it. I'm so envious of Ningji. She even has such an adorable pair of babies. She is practically a winner in life. Because of the status that Tangning had slowly established, as soon as she stepped onto the set of A Survivor, everyone took really good care of her. Everyone subconsciously treated her with respect, like a big sister of the industry. But, of course, this was also because Tangning was deserving of the love and respect. After entering her room, Tangning quickly washed herself down. Without even worrying about covering the scratches and injuries she received, she quickly rushed over to Mo Ting and her babies. Mo Ting had already spotted the blood on her waist. Seeing that she ignored it, he put down the babies and pulled Tangning into his embrace. Did you get hurt? This film is quite dangerous, Tangning replied honestly. I already tried my best to protect myself. What happened today was an accident. Mo Ting did not respond. He simply gestured for her to fetch the medicine chest and began to help her sterilize the wound. No matter how small the injury is, you need to treat it. Otherwise, it will leave a scar. Tangning looked at the two rascals that were crawling around randomly on the bed and couldn't help but pull them into her embrace, kissing one and hugging the other. As for her injury, she simply left it in Mo Ting's hands. We will be moving into the jungle tomorrow. I may not be able to return home for 2 months. I've already arranged for you to get a day off for the Ftian Awards. After treating Tangning's wound, he covered it with her shirt. You don't need to worry about the babies. Okay. Tangning nodded. However, her gaze never once left the babies. I will come pick you up on the day that you complete filming. I have something I want to tell you. Mo Ting did not plan to keep Tangning in the dark for much longer. Okay, Tangning nodded. Don't worry, I will take good care of myself. After the couple reunited for a little while, Mo Ting left with the two babies. Of course, Luce was waiting in the car. Otherwise, Mo Ting alone wouldn't have been able to bring the two rascals all the way out to such a distant location. That night, Tangning moved to the new location with the rest of the cast and crew. However, on the way there, her mind was completely filled with images of Mo Ting and her two sons. In fact, she couldn't even focus on the script in front of her. Ningji, you're amazing. It's not easy for an actress to do what you have done. Trust me, I Survivor will definitely help you to become the best actress, an accompanying actress comforted. But, even though actors receive the best resources, I must say that we also sacrifice a lot. For example, we have to keep our personal lives a secret and sacrifice time with our families. Endure it for a little longer. 2 months will pass quickly. During the time that Tangning was relocating, Longji delivered some good news. She had given birth to a little girl and it had inherited its mother's looks, chubby, round and, not to mention, cute. Tangning was happy for Longji. After all, she had wanted a baby for a long time. Now that her wish had come true, she was definitely bouncing off the walls in joy. However, Luce's parent only flew over to take one glance at Longji and the baby before they rushed back home. That night, Longji noticed that Luce's eyes were red. Luce did not say a word, but Longji could tell that something wasn't right because she understood Luce. Does mom and dad not like daughters? This was the only thought that came to Longji's mind as she asked him carefully. Don't overthink it. I'm happy with whatever you give birth to, Luce replied as he held their precious little daughter in his arms. I guessed right, didn't I? Longji never imagined, even though her mother-in-law had never applied pressure to her, the hatred on her face was obvious. You're focusing on the unnecessary again. The person you are spending a lifetime with is me. I already told you before you fell pregnant that you don't need to worry about pleasing them. Actually, Longji didn't understand why she cared so much either. Perhaps it was because of her lack of self-confidence. Chapter 786, I simply felt bad for the child. Every year's Fate Yan Awards was extremely competitive. But, this year, no one could compete with Tang Ning's acting and ticket sales. Whether it was the lost relative, the forensic concubine or a survivor which was currently being filmed, one thing was clear. Whenever Tang Ning appeared in a production, it was guaranteed to be a masterpiece. Amongst these, the forensic concubine was more surprising than the rest because Mo Ting was the male lead. It allowed everyone to see a different side to Mo Ting, a Mo Ting that was capable of anything. In fact, with Mo Ting's motivation, Tang Ning's King Lan became more realistic and full of emotion. As a result, the forensic concubine broke all records for television dramas and was still ranked as the #1 performing drama at the moment. This was no doubt a successful year for Tang Ning. She performed well in the box office, became a mother, returned to work looking more youthful than before and even filmed a television drama with her husband. There's no doubt that Tang Ning will win Best Actress this year, right? I don't think there's any alternative. If she doesn't win, then this world is surely unfair. All of a sudden, people within the industry made a clear distinction between Tang Ning and other actresses. They had to be fair. Everyone had witnessed Tang Ning's acting and her impressive skills were an undeniable truth. But, the day before the Fate Yan Awards, Gogo was once again sent to the hospital because of a fever. This time, Tan Xiling directly asked Mo Ting, why didn't you notify Tang Ning? Although he's only had a fever, it doesn't mean that he doesn't want his mother by his side. Doctor, you're overstepping your boundaries. Mo Ting replied straightforwardly. Tan Xiling calmed down a little before she started to work on lowering Gogo's body temperature. Even if it's a marriage of convenience, she shouldn't just disregard her child after giving birth to it. Does she not care about her son at all? My wife is not disregarding her child. I simply didn't tell her about this. If Dr. Tan continues to involve personal emotions into this, I have the freedom to change doctors, Mo Ting warned. You have no right placing judgment on another's family. Tan Xiling nodded her head. After she helped Gogo stabilize his temperature, she said to Mo Ting, I simply felt bad for the child. You are in no position to feel bad, Mo Ting said before he carried Gogo out of the hospital. As he reached the front door, he said to Beilua, Mom, get ready to change hospitals. At this moment, the thing that Mo Ting regretted the most was not having his own medical team. After finding out that Gogo's body was relatively weak, Mo Ting looked everywhere for an authoritative doctor in pediatrics. He simply wanted to reduce his son's suffering. But, it couldn't be denied that Tan Xiling was amongst the best of the best in the industry even though she was a bit too sensitive. Even so, he didn't want to see a doctor that was biased towards his wife again. For Mo Ting, there were only two kinds of people in this world, Tang Ning and everyone else. Zhao Ting, it's time you tell Zhao Ning about this. Beilua's heart ached as she watched Gogo suffer. You need to know that no matter how careful a father is, a mother's care is still necessary. I know what to do, Mo Ting replied. The Fate Yan Awards were on the horizon and Tang Ning was about to return home, but a survivor was only 2/3 completed. When it came to the Fate Yan Awards, the public paid close attention to it every year. After all, these awards were the most prestigious in Beijing and every winning film and actor was truly admired. For this year's Fate Yan Awards, Tang Ning was once again a favorite. So, discussions were more intense than before. Even at the hospital, doctors and nurses watched a couple episodes of The Forensic Concubine during their breaks for some entertainment. Seeing this, Tan Xiling frowned. Don't let me discover you watching something so ridiculous during work hours again. The nurses were a little helpless. Tan Xiling had never been against them watching it before. Why was she suddenly so angry? Tan Xiling knew what the nurses were curious about, So she explained, I don't care how successful of an actress she is. In my eyes, she is a complete failure who doesn't take care of her own child. She shouldn't even have the right to have children. The nurses smiled awkwardly. They felt that Dan Suing was overstepping her boundaries. Gogo has been seriously ill 3 times, but she hasn't appeared even once. Have you guys ever seen a mother like this? Dr. Dan, I'm afraid that's none of your business. Tan Suing glared at the nurses before turning around and leaving. In reality, even Tan Suing felt that her reaction was a little over the top. Why was she so angry about Tang Ning's irresponsibility? Perhaps she felt that Tang Ning did not deserve the love of others. Since she was such a hopeless mother, she must be simply putting on an act in private. But Dr. Tan can't be telling the truth, right? Was Mo Ting and Tang Ning's child ill 3 times? And did Tang Ning not show up even once? The two of them wouldn't be in a marriage of convenience, right? The type where they each do their own thing? Stop making random guesses. The two of them have a great relationship. That can't be possible. Then, can you explain why Dr. Tan is so upset? The 3 nurses began discussing the matter in the nurses' station, without noticing that they were talking about the secret that Mo Ting did not want others to know about. Of course, this was all because of Tan Suing. She may have been professional, but as a person, she had a very low IQ because she considered herself as heroic and just. Of course, it was simply a discussion amongst a few nurses at the moment. The incident had not gone out of hand. But, just because it hadn't today, didn't mean it wouldn't tomorrow. Night hit. Mo Ting thought to himself in the study room for quite some time. In the end, he lifted his phone and called a familiar number. Ning. Tang Ning was in the middle of filming a night scene. Even so, she did not ignore Mo Ting's call. What's wrong? Why are you still awake so late at night? Gogo's not doing well, Mo Ting said straightforwardly. He's been having fevers frequently and his immune system has continued to weaken. After hearing this, Tang Ning's mind went blank. Is it serious? Is he still having a fever? After a few episodes, he is more stable. You don't need to worry. Mo Ting knew that Tang Ning was considering rushing home immediately. So, he quickly comforted her. After playing with Tang Tang for a while, he fell asleep. You don't need to hurry home. You can come back in 2 days as originally planned. Chapter 787, Who do you think you are? Tang Ning couldn't possibly wait 2 days, so she immediately asked for leave. After hearing about her situation, the director agreed to her request, but as she left, he shared his opinion. Tang Ning, it's normal for children to be sick. Plus, he has President Mo to take care of him anyway. On the other hand, you are the female lead of this film. Every day that filming is delayed, the production suffers a huge loss. I can agree to your request this time, but this will be the only time. Tang Ning understood the director's difficulties, so she nodded her head apologetically. I'll be responsible for all the consequences. Fine, go ahead then. After all, the Fate Yan Awards is coming up, so I'll just pretend I let you take your leave early. As long as Tang Ning was willing to take responsibility, the director was willing to do this favor for her. After all, she did indeed have an understandable reason. Tang Ning rushed home overnight. The first thing she did as soon as she walked through the door was check that Gogo was okay. Seeing that he was sleeping peacefully in his crib, she let out a sigh of relief. Mo Ting heard some noises, so he came out of the bedroom. As soon as he saw Tang Ning standing beside the crib covered in sweat, he immediately grabbed a towel and wrapped her up in it. I told you not to worry. What if you catch the cold by rushing home like this? It's not that easy to not worry. Tang Ning covered her face with the towel. At this time, she realized her hands were icy cold. Go have a hot bath. Mo Ting carried her into the bathroom and began to fill the bath with warm water. After she stepped into the bathtub, he stepped outside and gave the director of A Survivor a phone call. President Mo, Tang Ning already explained everything to me before she left. It's not a problem. After the Fate Yan Awards, she will return to work as scheduled. I'll compensate for any losses during this time, Mo Ting said to the man. As long as Hairu is willing to do that, 2 days leave for Tang Ning is nothing. Don't worry. The director knew how to weigh the pros and cons. Tang Ning was away for 2 days, but it didn't mean that they'd run out of scenes to film for the supporting actors. Even though he knew this, he still needed to act like he was put in a difficult position. Otherwise, Tangning would assume that the rules did not exist. Soon, Tangning finished her bath and stepped out into the bedroom. Seeing that Moting wasn't around, she assumed he was in the study room. Tangning remained silent for a few minutes. She knew that she shouldn't become more of a burden for Moting at this time, so she walked over to the bed, lay down and relaxed. It didn't take long before Moting returned to the bedroom. Knowing that Tangning wasn't truly asleep, he lay down and hugged her from behind. He then said quietly, "I've already booked a more detailed checkup for Gogo tomorrow. You don't need to worry. The medical team I've assembled is already on the plane. They will be in Beijing very soon." "Exactly how weak is Gogo's immune system?" Tangning flipped her body and asked as she hooked her arms around Moting's neck. The doctor previously determined that he'd get sick often because his immunity fluctuates unpredictably. After hearing this, Tangning remained silent for a while. Obviously, she did not feel good about this news, but she accepted that it was reality. After a few moments, she calmed down and said, "Hurry and get some rest. Gogo is already sick. You can't tire yourself out as well." Moting knew that Tangning had a strong heart. Even though she was worried, she would not be flustered. So, the next morning, Tangning and Moting brought Gogo to the hospital. Although it was the same hospital where Tansiling worked, it was still the best children's hospital in Beijing. Soon, Gogo was once again taken in for an examination. Apart from having a weak immune system, he was also diagnosed with a lung infection. As per Moting's request, the doctor testing him this time was not Tansiling. Even so, one of the nurses suggested, "Mr. Mo, Dr. Tan is indeed our best doctor. Plenty of people come to look for her every day. So, I think it's still best for you to speak to Dr. Tan about treating Gogo." After hearing this, Tangning looked at Moting curiously. "Why don't you want to see Dr. Tan?" Moting remained silent and did not say a word. Seeing this, the nurse explained, "Dr. Tan is quite a character and is passionate about her work. She doesn't like it when parents mistreat their children. So, she developed a bias towards you after not seeing you the past few times that Gogo came to the hospital. Is that it?" Tangning did not care as she immediately instructed the nurse to call Dr. Tan. "Ting, I know." Moting knew what Tangning wanted to say. But, if worst came to worst, he was going to pretend that Tansiling was invisible. Soon, Tansiling arrived at the emergency ward. This time, she finally got to see Tangning. At first, she did not say a thing. Only after she saw Gogo's results did she say, "Your child is seriously ill." As his mother, you weren't by his side, so you're partly to blame. You need to know that you are now a mother. Since you decided to have a baby, you should take responsibility for it. Is acting and becoming famous really that important to you? Tangning did not argue back. She simply accepted Tansiling's blame and said patiently, "Dr. Dan, can you please treat Gogo? With an irresponsible mother like you, he can't be saved." Tangning did not try to explain, nor did she say anything else. Seeing that Moting was about to release his anger, Tangning immediately held him back and comforted him for a few seconds. "I think, at a time like this, Dr. Tan should put aside all personal emotions. After all, my son is waiting for you to save him." "So, you finally acknowledge your son?" After hearing this, Tangning no longer pleaded for her help. Instead, she gave Zai Yuling a phone call, because at this time, Tang Yigan came to mind. "Mom, Gogo is sick. Help me contact Sister 2. I will arrange for Gogo to be transferred to her hospital." Zai Yuling had no idea how sick Gogo was. As soon as she heard what Tangning said, she immediately gave Tang Yigan a phone call. "Are you crazy? Gogo is in a dangerous state, yet you want to transfer him to another hospital." Tansiling immediately criticized Tangning's decision. "You're indeed not a suitable mother." This time, no one could stop Moting as he waved at the nurse in the room. "Go call your hospital chief." The nurse received a fright, especially after seeing the dark expression in Moting's face. So, she immediately turned around and ran off towards the hospital chief's office. "Even if you call the hospital chief, you can't change the fact that Tangning is a bad mother. You're meddling too much with others' business," Moting said. "If you like to cast your subjective judgment on others so much, you should stop being a doctor and go get your brain checked first." "Mr. Mo, please watch what you're saying." Moting did not say a word, nor could he be bothered to respond to her. To be honest, the couple had never met a doctor that was so meddlesome. Soon, Tang Yiken arrived at the hospital. Although Tang Ning barely contacted her, they were still sisters. So, Tang Yiken grabbed Gogo's results out of Tan Siling's hands and ran her eyes across it. She then said calmly, "You can't transfer Gogo to my hospital, brother-in-law. I'll leave it to you to organize." After Mo Ting heard this, he immediately turned around and left. At this time, Tan Siling questioned Tang Yiken, "Who do you think you are?" Chapter 788, You certainly live up to your reputation as a complete moron. I've long heard of the infamous Dr. Dan. After seeing you today, you certainly live up to your reputation as a complete moron, Tang Yiken said as she squinted her eyes to look at Dan Siling in detail. You are indeed professional, but your EQ is non-existent. Before you treat another child, I suggest you go home and learn how to improve your EQ. Tang Yiken had previously read the medical research papers that Dan Siling had written and understood that she was a perfectionist. However, she had an idealized view of the world and wasn't considerate of others' difficulties. She expected everything was a given. She felt that children were the most important things in a person's life, so parents were expected to stay by their sides and take care of them 24/7. She also felt that children were the most precious things on earth, so adults should treat these hopeful souls unconditionally. What right do you have to teach me what to do? Tan Siling analyzed Tang Yiken from head to toe as she spoke with doubt and arrogance. Based on the fact that I am currently the associate professor of pediatrics and you are just a specialist. After speaking, Tang Yiken presented her ideas proof. From a professional viewpoint, Tan Siling was indeed capable. This was something that Tang Yiken had to admit. But, Tan Siling lived with too much bias. As a result, she had quite a reputation, but her status and capability were not on the same level. After seeing Tang Yiken's identity, Tan Siling shut up unhappily. Afterwards, the family left the hospital together. During their transfer, Tang Yiken said to the couple, "The two of you haven't paid enough attention to the medical field. That's why you were so flustered when Gogo got sick. Why didn't you contact me earlier?" Although the hospital that Dan Siling works at is the best children's hospital in Beijing, even if the child gets cured, the parents would end up getting sick from anger. I've already assembled the best medical team. Gogo doesn't need that just yet. Let's first take him to the military hospital. My mentor can definitely cure Gogo. Of course, a medical team is still necessary afterwards, but don't forget to do regular checkups. Tang Yiken was completely in professional mode. Even though the man in front of her was Mo Ting, she couldn't help but voice her opinion. Actually, if someone was to ask about the relationship between Tang Ning and Tang Yiken, Tang Ning felt that her relationship with Tang Yiken was the most distant amongst everyone in the Tang family. Previously, when Tang Xuan was still in the family, Tang Yiken didn't have a good relationship with her either and had always been considered as a neutral party. Either way, she always felt that the Tang family had too many secrets, so she preferred to spend most of her time at medical school. As a result, Tang Ning had no idea that Tang Yiken had accomplished so much within her own field. Are you surprised? Tang Yiken asked after noticing the shock on Tang Ning's face. I also only recently started watching your television drama, At the Forensic Concubine. Tang Yiken expressed that she had been taking notice of Tang Ning. But, of course, it was during a time when I was extremely bored. In the past, when you were sick, you never turned to me. From now on, you should contact me more often. I didn't know. Tang Ning replied helplessly. Soon, the family arrived at the military hospital. Tang Yiken was currently a military doctor at the hospital. So, she carried Gogo straight into the surgery. Every now and then, a man's voice could be heard coming from behind the door. Do you need my assistance with such a simple matter? Tang Yiken, I've wasted my efforts on teaching you. So what if he's your nephew? You should treat him yourself. Soon, a tall and built man stepped out of the surgery. As soon as Tang Ning saw him, she was a little taken aback. It was rare to see such a handsome face in the hospital. It was a shame he wasn't a celebrity. He was obviously Tang Yiken's mentor. Originally, everyone assumed that he would be a middle-aged man, but who would have thought that he was merely in his early 30s? Dressed in a white cloak, it was obvious that this man was trying to suppress his emotions. At the same time, His cool expression and look of disdain made Tang Ning let out a laugh. Compared to Qindong, this man looked even more like he was related to Mo Ting. "What are you laughing at?" Mo Ting asked as he furrowed his eyebrows. "It's nothing. It's just that I suddenly realized why Tang Yigan doesn't like to return home. With such a handsome mentor, if I was in her position, I wouldn't want to go home either," Tang Ning replied. "You like his type?" "I'm just joking, Mr. Mo." Tang Ning immediately comforted her jealous husband. Either way, based on her womanly instincts, the conversation between Tang Yigan and the man obviously shows that their relationship was very close. Even if they were mentor and student, they definitely felt deeply about each other. So, she didn't believe for a minute that the man would disregard Gogo and not treat him as expected. A moment later, Tang Yigan asked Mo Ting and Tang Ning into the surgery. At this time, the man said to the couple with a cool expression, "There's no need to be in a panic. Leave the child here for a couple of days and go do what you need to do." Lu Guanglai. Tang Yigan tugged on his sleeve awkwardly. Tang Yigan was meant to be closer to Tang Ning, but judging by the current situation, Tang Ning seemed to have understood something. "You should call me mentor," Lu Guanglai instructed professionally. Tang Yigan glared at him as he turned and looked at Tang Ning and Mo Ting. With no choice, Tang Yigan simply said to the couple, "Don't worry, I will take good care of Gogo while he is here. You can both go home for now." Seeing no sign of movement from the couple, Tang Yigan reassured, "It is honestly a small matter. In that case, I'll come back in the afternoon to take care of Gogo." "There's no need," Lu Guanglai directly replied. "After the child has fully recovered, I'll call you to pick him up. Family members will simply get in the way and will be a disturbance to the nurse's care." After speaking, Lu Guanglai once again left the surgery. "He's like that, but he is very capable," Tang Yigan explained on behalf of Lu Guanglai. "Although he's a bit mean with his words, his abilities are better than the entire medical team that you have assembled." "When did he start being your mentor?" Tang Ning couldn't help but be curious. Since university." "You started uni when you were 19. That must mean that you've known each other for 8-9 years." Tang Yigan did not respond, but Tang Ning already knew what was going on, so she didn't ask any further. "We can't possibly leave Gogo here all on his own without worrying about him. But, if Dr. Lu insists, then we will first go home and wait for your update. If anything happens, contact me immediately." "Don't worry, it's President Mo's first time at being a father, so he doesn't have much experience. Children aren't that easy to take care of. You've already done all that you can, so you don't need to take it to heart." Tang Ning nodded before returning home with Mo Ting. However, as soon as they left the hospital, Mo Ting instructed Lu Che to do a background check on Lu Guanglai. As soon as Lu Che retrieved the information, his eyes opened wide in shock. After all, Lu Guanglai had already done so many great things within the medical field at such a young age. He was indeed surprising. However, no one imagined that the argument that took place between Tang Ning and Tan Siling at the hospital would result in the release of a huge piece of entertainment news. Chapter 789, It's My Fault for Not Handling the PR Properly. Exposed. Tang Ning's child admitted to hospital 3 times, but Tang Ning doesn't appear even once. Rumor has it, Tang Ning has no love for her child and her relationship with Mo Ting is based on mutual benefit. Best marriage of convenience acting. Tang Ning's acting ability applied to her lies. According to the Entertainment Weekly's latest discovery, it has been revealed that Tang Ning has no love for her son. While she was filming her latest film, it has been reported that her child was admitted to the hospital 3 times. But, Tang Ning wasn't present even once. It seems, she has no concern for her child's health, and it has been rumored that her relationship with Mo Ting has always been a marriage of convenience. After being made aware of this situation, we sent our reporters to investigate this matter at the hospital that Tang Ning's child was admitted to. In the end, it was confirmed by the medical staff that Tang Ning's son had indeed been sick multiple times, but Mo Ting was the only one they had ever seen. It seems, the rumors of a marriage of convenience may not have no basis. On top of that, we also interviewed the doctor that previously treated Tang Ning's child. For the truth, please continue to watch the following video. It is the hospital's mission to maintain confidentiality for its patients, so I have no right to reveal anything about the child's illness. But, During the multiple times that the child was admitted to the hospital, I had indeed not seen his mother even once, only the father, Tan Siling said calmly in the video that was playing. As for whether Tang Ning loves her child, I'm afraid only she knows. If her first few sentences didn't really suggest anything, her last sentence definitely did. It obviously had a hidden meaning. By saying what she did, Tan Siling was deliberately making people misunderstand the situation. It's not convenient for me to discuss any other matters. Thank you. After the video was released, most people felt that it wasn't something that Tang Ning would do. It didn't suit her character. But, the doctor at the hospital had personally confirmed it. While her child was sick, not only did Tang Ning not care for it, she didn't even appear at the hospital once. Was the image that she previously created a complete facade? Of course, this ignited the hatred of A-mother fans. In their hearts, no matter what the situation was, Tang Ning was already a mother. They could disregard that she couldn't provide care for her child, but she should at least visit it once while it was sick, right? However, she didn't. She deserves being criticized. Recently, when her child was seriously ill, she forcefully transferred it to another hospital, simply because our pediatrics specialist, Dr. Dan, had a few opinions about her. As a result, she completely ignored the well-being of her child and transferred him away. Although Dr. Dan's words may have been a little harsh, it was for the sake of the child. She simply dislikes irresponsible parents. If they don't want to take care of it, they shouldn't have given birth to it in the first place. Celebrities these days are nothing like the ones in the past. For the sake of their own interests, they would sacrifice anything. In the end, the public simply had horrible words to say about Tang Ning. Seeing this, Mo Ting erupted in anger for the first time in his office. He had never paid attention to the medical field. Who would have thought that the industry was just as messed up and incapable of differentiating right from wrong? Seeing Mo Ting in silence, Tang Ning understood that he was angry. So, she gently held onto his hand to comfort him. It's my fault for not handling the PR properly and not protecting your reputation. Most importantly, I should have notified you about our son's condition earlier. How many storms have I come out of alive? Did you think I'd be afraid of a small bit of slandering? Tang Ning shook her head with a smile. Mo Ting placed his hand on Tang Ning's head and pulled it onto his shoulder. Don't worry, I will help you get justice. The PR this time was difficult to manage. Doctors were a special group of people and the words that came out of their mouths always had a sense of authority. Plus, their responsibility was to save lives and simply say things as they saw it. After all, it wasn't like they had any resources to compete with Tang Ning for, so they had no reason to deliberately defame her. With the added fact that modern society was filled with pressures and the majority of people developed paranoia, it was understandable that they would naturally assume the worst. Soon, the director of A Survivor gave Mo Ting a phone call. President Mo, Tang Ning's situation is getting out of hand. Please hurry and resolve it before it affects the film's reputation and progress. Don't worry, Mo Ting replied with two simple words. Meanwhile, Tang Ning remained as calm as ever. Apart from making a few phone calls to Tang Yigan to check on Gogo's condition, she did not take the current scandal to heart. After being defamed so many times, she had already gotten used to it. But, Mo Ting knew that if Hairui was to speak up at this time, it would simply feel like they were making excuses. So, he instead thought of Tang Yigan. After seeing the news, Tang Yigan expressed her disgust towards Dan Siling. Even if Mo Ting didn't ask her, she would have stepped out and vouched for Tang Ning anyway. Gogo is currently being treated at the military hospital because his weak immune system has triggered a fever. He is not in a serious condition as per the rumors and is not in a life or death situation. Tang Yigan released a copy of Gogo's examination results. Also, I would like to clarify the reason why Tang Ning decided to transfer her son to another hospital. Firstly, Gogo had a fever and a slight lung infection, so Tang Ning asked a particular Dr. Tan for help. However, due to her own personal emotions, this particular doctor lectured Tang Ning. At first, Tang Ning did not respond. But, the doctor was completely immoral and ended up saying that she wouldn't treat the child because it had a mother like Tang Ning. Since she wouldn't treat the child, Tang Ning had no choice but to find another capable doctor. As a result, she contacted me. Was she wrong for doing that? Secondly, In regards to the rumor that Tangning did not show up at the hospital while her son was ill, I would like to ask if anyone has considered that there may be a reason for this. For example, it could be possible that Tangning did not know about this matter from the start. Everyone knows that my brother-in-law is famous for doting his wife. To prevent Tangning from being worried, it was completely possible for him to take on this entire problem without telling her. Most importantly, I would like to say one thing: a certain doctor at a certain hospital should take note of their own image before they go around lecturing others. As a doctor that demands parents to care for their children 24 hours a day, has she not considered that she will be held liable for these words? For those that are already parents, how many of you are capable of prioritizing your children at all times of the day? Isn't 24 hours too tiring? After what I've said today, you are free to believe what you want. But, those that spread rumors about my nephew being seriously ill should disperse and get some good karma for themselves. Regardless of the truth, it was certain that Gogo was not seriously ill. As for Tang Yikan's words, they reminded all the parents in the nation that not every doctor knew how to be responsible. In particular, those parents that had previously been tormented by Tensling were well aware of this. I never thought that this doctor was still around. Although her medical skills are not bad, there's definitely something wrong with her. Previously, when my mother took my child to see her, she requested my mother to watch over him through the entire night without sleeping. Even though my mother is already old, she told my mother that she can't allow the child to feel like no one cares about it. Is she mentally ill? This doctor is very difficult to deal with. I definitely think that Tangning has been framed.
Hit the like, thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for listening.